Michelle's here to coordinate your replies to all of the above, and I look forward to hearing. So, Michelle, let's get provocative, shall we?
Provocative, eh?
Yeah,
Yes. I was going to say reflective, but much better word there, John.
Okay.
Now, if we cast our minds back to Friday's show where we previewed the Liverpool-Spurs game, the majority of people, including John, called it a draw. And here we find ourselves, yes, reflecting on the 2-2 score at Anfield, but also revisiting a question that is never far from the headlines these days, the subject of VAR and the case for and against it. It's a debate we would love you to get involved in right here on Facebook Live. Plus, how did the newbies get on? Has Sanchez seduced Mourinho? Has Mkhitaryan met his match at Arsenal? We'll be discussing and dissecting the movers and shakers a little later. But first, go on then. Do you want to start with it? I told you so, John.
I did tell everybody, didn't I, that it would be 2-2 at Anfield, but there you go. Sometimes you get them right. And we were always going to be talking about Liverpool Spurs, no matter what happened. I'm actually delighted that the game was just every bit as entertaining as we had all hoped for, punctuated by 2 dazzling goals along the way. Also, I'd say this, credit to Spurs for coming out and playing the way they did in that second half, especially after the Manchester United rigours. 2-2 was pretty much the right result in my opinion. But, of course, the fallout from the game was all about the decisions made by the officials, most notably the 2 second-half penalties awarded to Spurs by referee John Moss after consultation with his assistant Eddie Smart. 2 penalties awarded, one of them missed by Harry Kane, of course, 1 scored, as well as a complicated offside call. The first saw scrutiny of the way Kane went down after contact with keeper Loris Karius. The second was all about the positioning of Eric Lamela and the way that he went down in the box after Virgil van Dijk lunged at the ball. Not surprisingly then, Liverpool's manager was uncompromising, if actually wrong, in his assessment of the penalties. This is what the newspapers had to say. Furious Klopp, as you could see, they're raging about it all. Van Dijk as well, who, not for the first time in his short Liverpool career, got a bit tired and made a little bit of a mistake. Well, he said they were all divers there. Singling out Harry Kane. Oof, he is the head boy. Single him out and it makes the back pages. Also, not surprisingly, Liverpool fans, I think, have been scathing, right, Michelle?
Yeah, as scathing as Klopp on Twitter. Let's bring some of those tweets up now to have a look at. You've got this one from Shindra, who says, does the FA panel review diving done by Spurs players? Should the ref be fined? His decision had a major impact on the game, John. And then let's move on to Raymond Alexander. Now, he goes as far as to say match fixing was involved, saying sometimes the better team on the day don't always win until the officials step in. And Sean Webman, furious with the referees, advising John Moss to hang up his whistle. And he's also critical of that celebration from the linesman, John.
I like the idea of hanging up a whistle, but they're fans. They're fans, and that's what you're going to get. But this is where you're going to get, hopefully, the objective, dispassionate stuff here. Virgil van Dijk led the Liverpool protests about 3 of the Spurs players. Now, this is the diving thing, right? So, headlines reflecting this. Are Spurs a bunch of divers? That was from the Mail's verdict there. On we go. This is Martin Samuel here. The glorious game decided by one exaggerated fall by Lamela. Of course, they love this kind of thing. It plays into the hands of, shall we say, the more sensationalist media. So let's assess this. Kane, Eriksen and Dele Alli, all accused of diving. I would say only the latter, Dele Alli, did. He's got previous when it comes to this. He's now been booked for diving 3 times since his Premier League debut against Manchester United, April 2016, against Huddersfield, September 2017, and of course now in February 2018. And John Moss, absolutely right to do so yesterday. So that's something that Ali needs to sort out. As for Kane, I'd say, well, the first penalty was more about the tricky offside call, which I still think should be called offside, than the contact by Karius on Kane. Because, you see, once Kane knocks it past the goalkeeper and gets touched, I don't even think it's 9 times out of 10. I think that's a penalty 10 times out of 10. The only time it might ever not be given would be if it was an exaggerated dive a la Dele Alli, but it's not. It's Harry Kane. On the Van Dijk-Lamela contact, I would say this. The linesman was absolutely right to intervene because he saw what John Moss and many of us didn't see in real time, and that was the contact Van Dijk actually made with Lamela's calf before his knee came up and he pulled his knee away from Lamela. Not entirely sure that linesman Smart should be fist-pumping to celebrate getting the call right, though. It's only going to antagonise fans and lead to accusations of favouritism, a bit like a traffic warden correctly but annoyingly writing you a ticket and then celebrating it. This is where I think Jurgen Klopp was wrong, by the way, albeit in the heat of the moment, to comment on the decisions without having analysed them in detail, and also to suggest that the linesman shouldn't be, as he said, getting in the middle or getting involved in stuff. I say it's a team of officials. That's why they're there. They have to work as such to arrive at the right decisions. They know the laws of the game better than most, if not all of us, and they are there to make decisions. They shouldn't therefore be criticised for doing their jobs. Anyway, Moss and Smart got the backing of several high-profile former referees turned commentators. Graham Poll, who's never short of an assessment, came up with this one, and he actually said, well done, Eddie Smart. The assistant got involved in both penalty decisions, and he was right to do so. To me, there are 2 points to be made crucially about the whole saga. Firstly, don't say, well, it's what Spurs deserved, or it turned out in the right result, because that shouldn't be a factor. The result's actually irrelevant. It's all about getting the individual decisions correct. Secondly, and this is the point I'm going to get to now, it brings VAR into the conversation. In fact, for me, the last 10 minutes at Anfield encapsulated the whole VAR debate. Some, like football commentator Ian Darke, who put this out on Twitter, would say, right, if ever there was a game that was an advert for why we need VAR, this is it. But if you actually look at the thread that came through on that, then I saw a reply from a guy called Dale Hogarth, who wrote very eloquently saying, yeah, it was a fantastic advert for why we shouldn't introduce VAR. Great entertainment, drama, controversy, etc. Precisely why we love football. Okay, I'd love to hear from you guys on that, and Michelle will make that happen very shortly. But let's get to journalist Dom Fifield of The Guardian, who's been patiently waiting to join me from the UK. Dom, interesting game with so much to take away. What was your take on the way the team of officials did their work at Anfield?
Well, a couple of things, really. I thought the assistant referee, Eddie Smart, did a fantastic job. He was decisive in what he'd seen, and he made that very clear to the referee. However, I was slightly disconcerted by some of John Moss's comments, which were caught on camera, actually. Had the subtitles up on that. And just before he awards the first penalty, he says, I don't have a clue whether Lovren touched the ball. And then within a split second, he awards the penalty and says, I'm giving the penalty. Now, to me, that is a bit bizarre, because that is a referee admitting he doesn't know whether there was a touch, the key touch, and then committing to the penalty. Also on that incident, and caught by the cameras, Emre Can insisting to both officials, oh, he didn't touch the ball, Lovren did not touch the ball. A blatant lie.
Yeah.
How do the officials have a chance if the players are lying to them like that? I mean, it was obvious. There was a clear touch. And Ericsson was there as well, and he made that clear. And to me, that dismayed me, to be honest.
OK, and it will do, but 'twas ever thus, really. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? The players could make life so much easier. Now, if we have to, unfortunately, accept that isn't going to happen, Dom, then we bring VAR into this one. So we're really cutting to the sort of philosophical chase here. What do we want from our football? I don't like this thing about it's never mattered more or there's so much at stake. It's always been the same. But do we want to accept warts and all, mistakes and all, or do we want to get it as right as we can with VAR?
I think we want to get it as right as we can. I think Jurgen Klopp wouldn't have been able to make those comments post-match had VAR been in operation at that game. And I think VAR ultimately would have actually produce the same decisions by the officials. One thing we can't ever say again is, oh my word, VAR just delays football and we shouldn't have it for that reason, because there was at least a 3-minute delay after the award of the first penalty while the officials discussed it on the sidelines, and Emre Can and Ericsson were having their say as well. So that's what happens. We're gonna get delays now, whether we have VAR or not. So let's have the VAR, let's get it accurate. That's the best way forward for everybody.
Yeah, it's a great point you make, and several of them there. Stick around, Dom, I'll come back to you very shortly. And you know, Michelle, from seconds after we came on air, the viewers were arguing about this as well, weren't they?
Yeah, the debate continues. Right, let's start with Ankit, who reckons both of those calls are penalties. Jeremy says, look at the replays, both were clearly not penalties, no chance whatsoever. And then Imran says, nice one, John, for predicting the correct score at Anfield. It was a brilliant game, only to be spoilt by the officiating. VAR is a must now. Right,
Imran's a Liverpool fan, Jeremy's a Liverpool fan. Of course, as a fan, imagine how they must have felt, right? They've just seen a guy score one of the most wonderful goals you'll see. They're on a high, they cock a hoop, they've had a penalty missed by the opposition, and then that happens. So yeah, it's very hard to take this away from the fans. They'll say, yeah, the official spoiled it. But looking at it again, there are two key things. On the offside shout, I hate the offside rule, and that might have got in the referee's mind and messed that one up. On the other one, I initially thought that Van Dijk had gone with his knee, Lamela had exaggerated, but what I saw on the replays afterwards was that Van Dijk caught him with his foot, his boot, on his calf, and that is what the assistant saw, and that's what he brought to his attention. So ultimately, certainly one of them was right. That's where I am on this one, but VAR would solve a lot of problems. Back with more from Dom next.
On the other side, we reflect on the rest of the action from the Premier League, including City's stumble, United anything but humble, and we ask, what the Heverton was that? Do let us know how your team got on over the weekend, unless your team is managed by Big Sam, in which case, don't.
So, having talked about the biggest talking point to have come out of the weekend in the Premier League, let's now get to the actual results and what they all meant to the league table. Right, 30 goals already scored, and we still have Watford-Chelsea to come. Southampton were the only team to win away from home. It was their first win, by the way, in 13 attempts. Manchester United, the only team to keep a clean sheet. Bournemouth recorded a first-ever league double over Stoke, and Brighton picked up a first win in 7 matches. To the table, City suffered a rare slip-up, allowing United to close the gap at the top to 13 points with 12 games to go. United in turn stretching their lead over Liverpool to 5 points, but Chelsea can move up a spot later with a win. Arsenal's spectacular victory edged them back into top 4 contention, but their improved goal difference is still lagging some way behind. Anyway, let's now start our roundup of the weekend's talking points with those Gunners. And they're all over the papers, and why not? Electrifying was the buzzword, if you will, and there was shock and awe, all sorts of things, because they were really, really good, weren't they? They were always likely to do this to somebody. I said that on Friday. Given the boost also of having new record signing Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's recovery from illness, the Emirates fans turned up and they were always going to be treated to something special, even though to be 4 goals up in 37 minutes. Who saw that coming? It felt like a throwback to the good old Thierry Henry days of just lightning fast Gunners attacks, blowing teams away. And the catalyst for all of it was Henrik Mkhitaryan with his hat-trick of assists. Now, Mkhitaryan looks like he's been playing in Arsenal colours for years. Many will say he should have been. It just looks like a perfect match, and there are going to be some spectacular showings from this team in games to come. But will they only come at home, I wonder? Will Mickey and the Gunners actually be able to discover a formula that works on the road? Let's find out, shall we? Meanwhile, the player with whom he was swapped, Alexis Sanchez, looks just as at home in his new surroundings, to be honest with you. There's always been a bit of the warrior about Sanchez's game, and I think he's perfectly suited to the combative Mourinho ethos. Sanchez has now been fouled 15 times since he started playing for Manchester United, 7 times in the Huddersfield game alone, and that point wasn't lost on those who covered it. So look at the headlines here. Sanchez beats the heavy mob. That was from the Mail on Sunday, and this was Jamie Redknapp running a column saying kicking him, the little devil's the only way to stop him there. There's a little piece you can just see there, the top 5 fall guys. It's about the top 5 fouled players there. Again, a bit like Mkhitaryan, I would say this of Sanchez at Manchester United. Sometimes a player just feels like he's the right fit for that particular club, and I'm getting that vibe there. Let's get Dom Fifield back in here. Dom, do you get that vibe as well? I mean, I don't mean just with Sanchez. I mean, do you mean both of them? Have they got into a club where they're better placed now?
Yeah, quite possibly. I was lucky enough to be at Yeovil Town for the FA Cup tie where Sanchez made his debut for United, and he just had the air of somebody, the strut of someone who was right for Manchester United. You need a bit of pizzazz, a lot of self-confidence, and a lot of bravado almost to be a big money signing at Manchester United. And Sanchez just has that feeling about him. He'll fit in perfectly there. And Mkhitaryan as well. I think the style of football that he plays is very suited to Arsenal. He will thrive there. The fact that he's got this relationship already with Aubameyang is superb from his Borussia Dortmund days. One thing on Arsenal, though, it's all very well spanking Palace and Everton at home and scoring 4 goals in 22 and 37 minutes. Let's see what they do at Spurs at the weekend. It's on their travels and it's against the better teams that they tend to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that, don't we? Because you can have all these attacking players you want. I mean, goalkeeper, I suppose, defensive midfielder. Anyway, let's build on that. The downside, as Dom's rightly said, to that Emirates game was the atrocious showing by Everton. Look at these headlines. What a mess from the Echo there. The evidence was there for everyone to see, and the manager, Sam Allardyce, wasted no time in slamming his players for their efforts. You know, I'm alarmed at the speed with which Allardyce tore into his players once again. I fear this is a job too far for a man who really did look to have called it quits on Premier League club management 2 jobs ago. Also, what's happened to Michael Keane? There are rumours the club is considering selling the centre-half who was billed as one of England's bright young stars, a man for whom they paid, 30 million. I saw this tweet from journalist Matt Scott, by the way, and this really alarmed me, saying that apparently Allardyce thinks that his centre-half isn't up to it mentally. Rumours, and this was Matt stressing they were rumours, that Keane had knocked on the manager's office door and said he was low on confidence. Wrong move with somebody like Sam Allardyce. Now, if that is accurate, things look bleak, I have to say, for the former Burnley defender. That really is a worry. I'll get Dom's thoughts on that in just a moment, but I'm going to focus right now on tonight's game, or at least I'd like to, but once again, the build-up to Chelsea's encounter with Watford has been dominated by, yep, you guessed it, stories surrounding manager Antonio Conte's future. Now, the Italian, according to the press, has been seeking assurances according to his latest comments. So, yeah, he did say this. Apparently saying, you know, you've got to back me, tell the fans, I want some kind of a sign from the board that they still want me. Now, more than one Chelsea fan has written into me on this show saying Conte wouldn't need to keep saying things like this if the press didn't continue to bring the topic up. At least half of every press conference seems to be dominated by questions about Conte's future. But then again, I suppose they only do this because Conte himself is inviting it. So, Dom, you go to those press conferences. Where's the truth in all this? Is he to blame? Or are the press just jumping on this going, you beauty, we've got a story here that isn't going to go away? And do they just provoke constantly?
Well, a couple of things on that. We've been covering Chelsea a long time. We know roughly how that club works. We've seen this before. We've seen an Italian manager at Chelsea who's just won the double, actually, be a dead man walking from November onwards in his second season. This club does not change its spots. This is how it works, Chelsea. We know where this is going. That said, on Friday at that press conference, the question that prompted that answer was something along the lines of Roman Abramovich is in London, is he not? And suddenly Conte just went off on that answer. I want public backing. I want a statement from the club saying that they retain faith in me. It wasn't particularly provoked. It was what he wanted to say and he wanted out there. And it reflects a man who knows where it's going as well. He knows he will be leaving Chelsea in the summer.
Yeah. Hey, Dom, let's turn it back to the football here. I was looking at some clips with Olivier Giroud, you know, kissing the badge and thumping his chest and making all the right noises and all that. But just look at what happened on Friday night with Michy Batshuayi. I think conventional wisdom was that Chelsea were the big winners in that little merry-go-round, weren't they? That seemed to be the way things were going. I just wonder if we might have to rethink that a bit.
Well, possibly, although it's quite key that Chelsea have only loaned Batshuayi. I think there's a sentiment at that club that the next manager in charge might quite fancy using him at the club. And Batshuayi made 4 Premier League starts under Conte since arriving from 30-odd million from Olympique de Marseille. So look, he's not featured under this manager. He may in the future. With Giroud, it's really a matter of how quickly it takes him to settle in. He may not start this evening's game against Watford. I'm going up there later on today. He had a muscular injury, a hamstring problem that he picked up in December. But Chelsea need him in that team. They need a focal point for that front three. Against Bournemouth last week, they were pathetic. They were absolutely pathetic. They had nowhere to go. Once Hazard is closed down, they don't have a means, a plan B or even a plan A, really, to unnerve teams. It's slightly different away from home, so maybe they'll have more chances at Watford, but they need Olivier Giroud fit and firing quickly.
Yeah, that's a compelling story that you're going to be covering tonight. Enjoy the game, keep warm and stay safe. We'll see you soon.
All the best.
Once again, Michelle, the viewers getting busy, getting lively. Still a bit more vitriol from the Liverpool fans, but we'll move on from that, shall we?
Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about, United and Arsenal. Let's go to Amiobi's comment. He's talking about Sanchez and Mkhitaryan. And I think Mickey will be fine at Arsenal, but Sanchez and Mourinho will be judged by results. It's really difficult to please Mourinho if the team aren't always winning and trophies aren't coming in every season. And then I think Imran also had a comment as well. There we go. He says...
down the bottom there, that Arsenal
one. Yeah, that one. Arsenal could get a huge lift after the morning of Everton. The new stars brought the best of the rest, and they could go on a run now. Sean David Lowe, let's go back to Manchester United. Alexis Sanchez and Juan Mata, the best players for the Reds at the moment in their victory over Huddersfield. Dropping Paul Pogba was the right thing to do. And I can say Sanchez and Mata will be a huge game changer for the rest of the season.
Yeah. A lot coming out of that game, actually. McTominay's performance was really, really good. And how did he not get a penalty, by the way? It was a ridiculous decision by an official this past weekend. That VAR would have sorted that one out, I can tell you that. As for Arsenal, you can talk about them going on a run, but Dom is absolutely right. They have to do it away from home. They are on this truly wretched run of 29 points from 25 away Premier League games. You can put teams to the sword, featuring the most scintillating attacking play at home, but you've got to get the job done away from home. That is when we will really judge that side. As for that comment, and I think it was a really good one from Amiomi there about Sanchez, I think the Mourinho thing works for him because Mourinho will be judged on results, but Sanchez will, a bit like Jose, find a way of getting results, particularly in tough situations. So it does, to me, seem to be a good fit. We'll come back and celebrate a couple of remarkable goal scorers next when we play the numbers game.
Of the year is going to be a tough call come the end of the season. Kane, Salah. Well, we're here to help you, and by we, I mean John, who is about to dazzle you with some impressive goal-scoring statistics. Stick around, the numbers game is on the way.
Welcome back. Now, we've touched already today on both Harry Kane and Mo Salah in the context of that remarkable Liverpool-Spurs clash. Now I'm going to focus on their club's respective leading scorers in a special edition of the numbers game. So let's start with the league's leading scorer. It's been a season of milestones already for Harry Kane, and the weekend saw him join the Premier League's 100-goal club. He did so in a hurry, and that in itself invites comparison, for instance, with the greatest Premier League goal scorer of them all, Alan Shearer. Now, Alan Shearer got to that magic 100 number in just 124 appearances to Harry's 141. So, Kane second best to Shearer in that regard, but he got to his 100 in the Premier League as a younger player than Shearer had been, mainly because Shearer was already scoring goals before the Premier League came along in 1992. It is, though, worth noting some of the other names on that list, and if you ever want to slag off Michael Owen or anyone else like that, Wayne Rooney, just remember, they were really, really good young players. So Kane actually scored at Anfield, but on the day he was outshone by Liverpool's remarkable Mohamed Salah. The Egyptian's brace, including a goal that was described by some as being Messi-esque, and it continued his incredibly prolific start to goal-scoring life at Liverpool. So here we are then, quickest to those 20 goals. As you can see, he's ahead of Torres, Sturridge, Fowler and Owen. Now, just to build on this, a few more stellar Salah stats for you. His 21 goals have come in 25 games. That's the fewest appearances of any Liverpool player to reach 20. The Premier League goals, he's also been directly involved in 27 league goals, i.e. scoring and assisting, joint most with Andy Cole, Alan Shearer and Dwight Yorke in their first 25 appearances of Premier League football as well. The only other Liverpool player to score 20 or more goals in a debut season was Fernando Torres back in 2007-2008. Now, I think you'll agree, Michelle, as I've just gone through when Harry met Salah, if you will there, that both have been amazing. I wonder which of the two will win the Golden Boot and maybe even the Player of the Year.
Well, I don't know about that, but we're going to jump to a couple of comments here. Let's stick to VAR for a minute with Min Peng's comment. Kudos to Eddie Smart for the second penalty decision. However, John Moss looked dazed and unsure, and that is frustrating. How many assistant referees can get such decisions right? VAR 100% required
really
from Min Peng. And then Subi says about United, with Sanchez playing lively on the left side, is Martial going to be happy to stay on the bench? The same happened when Mourinho had Damien Duff, Robin and Joe Cole.
Yeah, it's really interesting that. Actually, I noticed, I don't think we'll bring it up on screen, but I noticed another comment coming about Manchester United's shape as well, because it's almost as if they're chasing, their tails here. So Pogba, what someone was saying, should play as a 10. That displaces Lingard. Then who plays on the left? Who plays on the right? McTominay to come in midfield? Or do they get that Vidal signing done in the summer? Anyway, you guys are chatting, and I'll join that conversation in a short while. Michelle, thank you so much. Thank you all very much for joining us here. Keep the comments coming. We'll see you again very soon. Bye.